Beginning, the point that changed everything. They led me to the Hall of Prospects, where dozens of Varinthian women stood behind shimmering curtains. I wasn't allowed to see their faces, it was tradition. I was simply supposed to pick one curtain, any one, and meet the woman behind it. My hands were sweating so badly I wiped them on my jumpsuit twice. Choose, the coordinator instructed. I panicked. I didn't want to offend anyone. I didn't want to end up with someone who clearly didn't want me. I didn't want anything except to go home. So I just pointed. At random. One has been chosen, the coordinator announced. The curtain parted. And my heart nearly froze inside my chest. Behind the curtain stood a young woman with silver blue skin glowing faintly like starlight, luminous eyes that shifted from violet to pale gold, and hair braided with threads of living light. She wore elegant armor plates over a flowing crimson robe. The room gasped. Whispers erupted instantly. That. He chose her. The outsider must be mad. The young woman blinked in surprise, then amusement touched her lips. Well, she said softly, this is unexpected. I swallowed. I can repick. I didn't know. You may not revise your choice, the coordinator snapped. What did I do wrong? I whispered to the nearest attendant. The attendant looked at me with huge, horrified eyes. You chose Princess Kylara, she whispered. Firstborn of the Empress. Heir to the throne. My soul left my body. Middle, married to the most important woman in the empire. Princess Kylara escorted me to her private chambers for the ceremonial introduction. I kept checking behind me to see if guards were coming to arrest me. You look terrified, she said lightly. Is that not reasonable? She laughed, soft, musical, strangely reassuring. Perhaps. But I'm not offended. The season of binding requires acceptance, not romance. You made a choice without knowing. That makes it honest. I really didn't mean to. She raised a hand. I know. If I wanted to refuse, I would have. You want to go through with this? Her eyes softened, though a regal confidence remained in every movement. I want to understand why fate chose you. Great. Fate. Destiny. Beautiful alien princess. Political consequences. All because I panicked. For the first few days, our marriage was mostly ceremonial. Kylara walked elegantly, spoke with measured calm, and carried the weight of authority effortlessly. Every room we entered shifted to accommodate her rank. Guards bowed. Servants froze. Even the palace lights dimmed slightly when she passed. And then there was me, a human who once electrocuted himself plugging in a portable heater. But Kylara never treated me like a burden. In fact, she seemed curious about Earth stories, Earth tools, Earth humor, Earth everything. One evening, while sitting on a balcony overlooking floating gardens, she asked, "Why did you point at that curtain? What guided your hand?" "Panic," I admitted. "Pure panic." She laughed again, a real laugh this time, unrestrained. "That," she said, "is the most honest answer I've heard in months." Our strange, mismatched bond grew from there. But peace in a palace is a fragile thing. And empires always have enemies. The assassination attempt. It happened during the Feast of Moons, a grand event where nobles, generals, and foreign ambassadors gathered in one massive, glittering chamber. Kylara and I sat at the head table. I tried not to spill anything on my ceremonial robe. Kylara leaned close. "You're nervous." "I'm surrounded by 7-foot-tall diplomats and 3-eyed warlords." "Yes." "You're doing well," she assured kindly. Then her eyes sharpened. She froze. "Get down," she whispered. I didn't think. I lunged. My body slammed into hers, knocking her sideways as the dart tore through the air where she'd been sitting. It embedded itself in a guard's shield, sizzling with lethal toxins. Guards roared and barriers snapped up around the hall. Kylara stared at me beneath her, shocked. You protected me. Of course I did. You could have died. Well, I'd prefer not to. But I swallowed hard. I couldn't let you get hit. Her eyes did something strange then, glimmering like molten gold, filled with an emotion I didn't know how to read. The assassins burst from the shadows. Before I could react, Kylara's hand seized my wrist. Stay behind me. I didn't listen. But one got past her, aiming a blade at her back while she was turned. I threw myself into the swing. Pain exploded across my ribs. I hit the floor, breathless. Kylara spun, cut the assassin down, and dropped beside me. Why? She demanded, voice cracking. Why would you do that again? Because, I coughed. Married people help each other. She stared at me like I'd said something impossibly profound. Then she shouted for medics. I blacked out. The Queen's decision and my new fate. When I woke up, I was lying in a chamber surrounded by glowing medical vines. Kylara sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine. You're alive, she whispered, almost like a prayer. Barely, I groaned. The Empress herself stood waiting in the great hall, tall, imposing, her presence heavy with command. Her voice echoed like thunder in a stone cavern. You risked your life for my daughter. I nodded, trying not to faint. You were under no obligation. Your marriage is symbolic. You could have let her guards handle it. I didn't want her to die, I said simply. The Empress looked at Kylara, then back at me. A random choice, she said slowly. Yet you act with loyalty greater than our highest warriors. Then she lifted her staff. By rights of the Empire, you may dissolve the marriage after this lunar cycle. I nodded rapidly. Yes, that was the plan. However, the Empress continued, I will allow a second option. Kylara's breath caught. I swallowed. What option? You may remain married, the Empress said, and take your place beside the future Empress of Varinthia. My brain short-circuited. Kylara looked at me not with command, not with duty, but with something soft, uncertain, hopeful. It is your choice, she whispered. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I remembered her laughter on the balcony, her curiosity, her strength, her hand gripping mine while I lay bleeding. The woman I had chosen by accident had become someone I didn't want to lose. If you want me to stay, I said gently, I will. Kylara's eyes glowed like sunrise. I want you to, she whispered. The Empress struck her staff on the ground. Then let it be written, she proclaimed. The outsider's random choice becomes destiny. Ending the choice that wasn't random after all. Word spread across the Empire within hours. The random outsider who chose the heir. The human who saved her life. The Empress's new son-in-law. For days, I heard nobles murmuring. Maybe it was fate. Maybe the outsider saw something we could not. Perhaps randomness is simply destiny in disguise. Kylara often squeezed my hand and whispered with a smile. See, perhaps your panic was cosmic guidance. Our marriage ceremony was no longer symbolic. This time, it was real vows etched in light, ancient songs echoing through the crystal halls. Kylara stood beside me, radiant, powerful, and fiercely proud. My life had changed forever. Not because of tradition. Not because of duty. Because a random point, a single terrified gesture led me to a woman who would shape the rest of my future. Princess Kylara. Future Empress. My wife. And destiny, it seemed, didn't care whether I intended it or not.